Hello, friends. Welcome in. It's just after 12 o'clock, just past high noon. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am pleased you've decided to join us. Whatever time you're able to give us, we're appreciative of it. We crank up live and local conversation early in the morning around 5 a.m. and keep it going until late into the evening at around 7 o'clock when we hand off to Mark Levin. In between those times, normally you hear Dan Mandis. This week, on spring break week, it's been Johnny B's doing a great job. Chris Hand after that, Matt Murphy, yours truly, until 3, and Brian Wilson with the drive from 3 until 7. There's your live and local conversation that is information-fueled and opinion-driven. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to be a part of the crew, be a part of the team, unpaid, of course. Field producers all, 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, that's the way to do it. That's the telephone number. I give that often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. It is also the Members Nutrition Super Text line, where you can opine on the text line without having to wait on hold. You do that by dialing up 615-737-9986 and texting us, and we will respond as time allows to all of those texts. There's lots to get into today. Before we do, let's get the pleasantries out of the way, reminding you that not only can you listen on radio, where most of you enjoy this information, enjoy this frivolity, this entertainment portion of the broadcast day. You can also find us on internet streaming applications. Wherever you stream music or information, you can stream Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Go there, whether it's, iHeart, Spotify are the ones that I always mention, but there's a plate full of them. You go there and you type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You'll find us, and off you go on your smartphone or whatever electronic device you might be streaming on. Then there's Super Talk TV for the masochist and the listening audience, at least during my portion of the broadcast day. You get pretty between, for example, 9 and... You get bald between 5 and 9. You get pretty between 9 and noon. You get tall between 3 and 7. And between noon and 3, you get ugly.
Well, this week you actually get gray between 5 and 9.
Well, that's true with JB. JB's in the saddle. So between noon and 3 for you masochists in the listening audience, you can tune us in on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. And today's episode is 531. And today's episode is always entitled by Headless Bell. And it is called
The Most Famous Murphy Since Audie. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3 cookies.
Did you say Audie?
Yeah.
I think that's
Audie. I just pronounced it the way they pronounced it on MASH this morning, and I wanted to use it.
You talking about Audie Murphy?
Yeah.
The guy in...
That's what I said.
You said Audie.
No, I don't think so.
At first, I thought you meant belly buttons.
Oh, God. This.
What the hell are you doing watching MASH in the morning?
This is what I've
MASH feels like an 11 p.m. show.
This is what I've been dealing with since he walked through the doors today, is just busting my chops over everything.
I'm spicy. I'm a little spicy today, and I know why. And all will be revealed as the show goes on. It's going to be a spicy show. I feel it in my bones. Now, the reason that I busted your chops is because my beloved wife made St. Patty's Day cookies, which are basically, they're called kitchen sink cookies, and you make them around Christmas time, and you use red and green M&Ms. Well, she has taken the red M&Ms out and only used green M&Ms, and there's a little sea salt on top of there, and there are pretzels in there. They're called Santa's kitchen sink cookies that she makes, and she now has made them so they're now leprechaun kitchen sink cookies or whatever. And she said to me, make sure, and by the way, I noticed Han did not go in there. Han did not get any cookies after I begged of him to do it.
He don't want his kids eating that garbage.
Well, I asked him off the jump because I know how Hand is. I mean, and he's a different sort of cat, right? He's cut from a different cloth. And so I walked in and I said, hey, I may have asked you this before. Do your kids eat sugar? Because I don't know. I mean, different parents.
Actually, let me interrupt you real quick and apologize to Erica. The cookies are not garbage.
Did you say they're garbage?
He don't want his kids eating that garbage. Sorry, Erica.
I didn't even
came
know.
off a little meaner than I meant it to.
I did not even notice that you did
she
that.
would have, and you know it.
Oh, no, you've already been called a doo-doo head. She emoji'd you doo-doo head. There's doo-doo. It was doo-doo and doo-doo.
And then
a head.
Face, yeah.
Doo-doo head. That's you. Because you refused to eat any of her cookies. And I said to you, I know that, post-holiday and all that, there's a couple of pounds lingering out there that you might want to get rid of. I'm the same way. I put on weight over the holidays that I haven't gotten off, and it's frustrating. But I said, Belle, for my wife, for Erica, for E, she who I love above all others, for someone who has embraced you. I mean, the only reason you're still my producer is because he says, no, don't do that. Be nice to Belle. He deserves it.
The only reason? That's good to know.
And what do? You sit here and you call her cookies garbage and refuse to eat one.
That was inappropropriate, which is exactly the reason I apologized for saying it.
Anyway, if anybody wants a St. Patrick's Day cookies, I forgot that all the sports guys are down at the Bridgestone Arena today, so there's nobody to eat the cookies. So and now Hand's gone.
They're down there for the game, right?
Yeah, they're down there for whatever.
When I was driving in, they were setting fireworks off over Nissan.
Over Nissan?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's all. Are you sure they're not blowing it up?
No, it was fireworks.
Oh, I bet they were setting fireworks off to celebrate the announcement of the all the new free agents. Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard from the Cowboys, and man, oh man, a lot of excitement over the Tennessee Titans free agency signings, and rightly so, by the way. So anyway, I asked Chris Hand if his kids eat sugar, and he said, well, yeah, they eat sugar. And I said, well, grab some cookies before you go for the kids, because, the wife has made them. She had some extra stuff in the house and wanted to celebrate St. Patty's Day with everybody, and he said he would, and I put him in the studio, and then he didn't, or in the control room, and then he didn't. But that's okay. They'll be here tomorrow.
Actually,
because
he came in and looked at him, and he's like, I'm not taking my kids that garbage. It's like, dude, you can't say that.
Todd 2, a.k.a. Ice-T, on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, says that you did, in fact, say Audie.
Yeah, that's not true. Said Audie.
I think it's Audie.
That's what I said.
Is that what you said?
Just like Hawkeye did this morning.
Aren't we recording this?
No.
We could go back. All right, so there's plenty of ways to communicate with the show, and there's plenty of ways to watch the show. Super Talk TV is up and running. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, as I mentioned, and you just heard the. We did do the episode title, did we not? I get confused.
That's where Audie came from.
Oh, there you go. Thank you for keeping me straight. At 1:00 today, a good friend of mine. He's been a good friend for many, many years. Gary Palmer will be on the show. He's in leadership. He's a part of the Republican leadership in the House of
Friday Eve all day long on the Matt Murphy Show.
I don't know why I don't know what. Was that a mistake?
Yeah, that was an accident.
Blame it on Audie Murphy, or Audie Murphy, as the case may be. Do you have an innie or an outie, Bell? Most important question I'll ask you today.
Innie.
Yeah, me too. What's the deal with outies?
Extremely, extremely low body fat.
Sure. Yeah, mine goes deeper than it should because of all of the fat surrounding my poor belly button, but I legit do not know what would create an outie.
I think it's just a weird thing, like being left-handed. It's just one of those things that society tolerates.
I don't know that I feel like left-handers could have overcome their disability, whereas the innie outie
Hey, look,
deal.
all I know is we're lucky we don't burn them as witches anymore, so they all need to thank us.
10% of the population, if they all disappeared tomorrow, nobody would notice. You should be ashamed of yourself if you couldn't manage to figure out how to write.
This is just brutal. Sorry, I started it.
Look, there are certain categories of people that you can slam on with impunity, and category A, there are types of people or categories of people that I have an ability to slam on without fear of reprisal.
Redheads, left-handers.
Sure. The deaf.
Oh, yeah, the deaf should be right at the top.
The Amish. See, I'm thinking a little more broad.
Because they wouldn't be listening anyway.
And deaf people, what are you telling them? Don't sign to them that I just slammed on them. Why would you do that to that person? That's on you. That's not on me.
Watching, though, and have subtitles on.
Well, you know what? Talk TV makes that a little more difficult. You're right. That's an important point.
But the Talk TV didn't impact the Amish at all.
Well, you could add Georgia Bulldog fans to that list.
Oh, he just had to stir the pot.
Mm-hmm. Normally we don't have news this hour, but there's a good reason for that, Harper. Georgia Bulldog. What are you doing over there? Hey, Jay Harper must be spicy because of you got a team. Are you a Vol fan, Jay?
No. I mean, I don't root against them, but I don't really root for them.
Do you have a college affiliation?
Well, yeah, but it's an FBS school. It's not. I follow.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The Citadel in the SoCon, because I used to do their play-by-play. So my son graduated from there. So I do follow the Citadel.
Is that Citadel's Charleston?
Correct.
Okay.
The Military College of South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I like it. I remember. I remember going on the campus of the Citadel when my dad was in Charleston with a radio gig, and I visited him when I was 12 years old. He took us on a kind of a tour. I forget exactly where it was in relationship to Charleston, but
it's downtown for all intent and purposes. Yeah, on the river, on the Ashley River.
How did you live in Charleston?
Oh yeah, I was there 13 years.
Oh man, what a gorgeous city.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
absolutely
mixed
beautiful.
Emotions coming back to love Nashville. We wanted to be back here. We moved to Charleston from Nashville and decided to come back.
The Battery in Charleston is the scene of one of my most favorite stories to tell, and I'm going to relate it to you now, Jay. So there's a lot of jogging that goes on. For those that aren't familiar with the Battery is just off the coast of South Carolina and is you can see Fort Sumter. Sumter?
Correct.
Yeah, Sumter. From the Battery, where obviously the fighting of the Civil War started. And there's a lot of activity down there. There's a lot of, families and whatnot and tourism, et cetera. And my wife and I and another couple went down to do what tourists do, go, see the row houses and all of that. And I get out of my car, and we just started walking, and there's this jogger that is jogging down the side of the road, and he screams at me, "On the right!" Like, ah! And it was like, why did he scream at me in that fashion? And I guess it was because he didn't want me to open up a car door or in some way impede his ability to get by me. So we take a little tour of the Battery. We take a little tour of downtown, and we get finished up, and we're about to go to lunch, and we get back into my car, and I pull out, and as I'm pulling out, I see the jogger jogging. He's still jogging around the area, and I see the jogger jogging the other way. And so I intentionally tracked him down, rolled down my window, honked my horn behind him, and screamed, "On the right!" And he pooped his britches. And that's the end of that story. Not really. Anyway. Well, it's good to have Jay here doing news. I have to be on time because Jay is present and accounted for during the 12 and 1 o'clock hours in the absence of Mac Moore, who's apparently watching a basketball game of skill. It's official. I don't know that we got into this in the manner that we should have yesterday, and it goes to what we considered it to be the fait accompli that we considered it to be, and that is that Donald Trump is now officially the Republican nominee, and Joe Biden is now officially the Republican, or the Democrat nominee, I should say. Do you know, Bel K, off the top of your head, and if you've heard, you'll tell me, do you know the last time that we've had a repeat election of this fashion? And it has been, it's more modern than you think. Not modern, but more modern than you think. It is in the, I'll say it's in the electronic media era.
Reagan, no.
No?
You know what? I don't remember that. I want to say maybe Nixon. No, that wouldn't be right either.
I'm going to give the listening audience an opportunity to answer this question. If you can answer this question properly on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, you will win a bottle of water and an ink pen used by me from the Matt Murphy Radio Prize Closet on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let us know what your thoughts are. No peeking, no Googling. Do it honestly. 615-737-9986. Back in a moment. The Tennessee Men's Clinic understands, guys, that if you're feeling low down, run down, sluggish, and you don't know why, sometimes you just chalk it up to being a certain age. Don't do this. And guys, I know I'm a dude, right? So I understand that we just are believing the rub some dirt on it and move on mentality when it comes to our health care, and we don't want you to do that either. So many men like you have gone to the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and so many men have told Evan Bass and his team of incredible urologists and other supporters within the clinic the same thing. And the story goes this way. I wish I'd have done this 3 years ago. I wish I'd have done this 4 years ago. I wish I'd have done this 5 or even more years ago. Whatever your situation, however you've become, let's say, symptomatic, whether it's just low energy, whether it's a non-desire to go to the gym, perhaps it's manifesting itself in a unwillingness or an inability to engage in, dare we say, bedroom activities. Whatever the situation, it's time to get it corrected. With Tennessee Men's Clinic, they're going to check your levels, including your T level. They're going to find out what's going on in your body, and they're going to diagnose and then subscribe you a plan of success to get back to the energy that you know that you want. It's Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or give them a call today at 615-208-9090, 615-208-9090. Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Over 30 years ago, Dr. Gill opened his doors to people just like you, people suffering pain on a day-to-day basis. Do you get up and feel the pain in your back, in your neck, in your hip, in your elbows, wherever it might hurt? What do you do to solve that pain? Are you popping pills? Well, I understand that it's an easy solution, and we all do it. We run to the cupboard and grab those over-the-counter pain medications, or you go to your doctor and you get some stronger stuff. If you're tired of popping the pills, if it's not time for surgery, if you want to put surgery off, and you should, surgery should always be that last resort, I strongly encourage you to go to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. For less than $50, for $49, they're going to give you a comprehensive examination. This is a full examination, friends. They don't slip you in and slip you out. They're going to give you x-rays. They're going to go over those x-rays and go over the findings with you. It is an event that's going to pinpoint where the pain comes from, why it's there, and how to solve it. and then they go about the business of solving it. So make the call that so many others have made to the best, the original, the Dr. Gill Center. He truly is the OG, Dr. Gill. Call him at 615-882-4838, 882-4838, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin.
Could the U.S. be on its way to a 32-hour work week? Well, one U.S. senator is lobbying for that very thing. And the Nashville airport could be offering even more destinations. We'll have those stories at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Jay Harper. It is Matt Murphy, the Matt Murphy Show. Jay Harper's back in the newsroom today. Bell K behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as humanly possible. You on the phones and you on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, 615-737-9986. Do all of these folks want to answer the trivia question to win the ink pen used by me and the bottle of water and an ink pen used by me? And it has been suggested on the Super Text line that I throw in a few cookies, and I will. I'm happy to throw in a few cookies for those that get it right. There's also a bevy of people that are very, 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 very upset with you, Bell.
They'll live.
Well, I was referring primarily to my wife.
She'll live.
Oh, you want me to read what?
I already apologized. Why am I going to get beat up for it?
Oh, I heard him. Garbage?
I apologized.
He's dead to me.
I went out of my way to say
dead.
sorry.
She said he's dead to me, dead, and then she put 2 doo-doo emojis. So
They just showed a Dolly Parton pinball machine on TV.
You watching your soaps? You watching your source?
Yeah.
By the way, Bell regularly watches his stories in the afternoons on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Not true.
While I'm hard at work, he's in there watching General Hospital or The Young and the Fearless or whatever the hell they call it. Let's go to Dan. Dan's got an answer. You know what? I'm not stepping in front of anybody's parade. It's not that hard of a question unless you don't know it. Hey, Dan, what's up? Hey, Dan. Dan. Dan,
yes.
man. Dan with the plan. Hey, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
you hear me now?
My question before you offer an answer, were you alive around then?
No.
Okay.
No, not 52. No.
What did you say?
I said no. I wasn't born before 1952.
Well, 1952 is not the right answer either.
Well, wasn't it Dwight D. Eisenhower against Adelaide Johnson, Stevens?
Yeah, but wasn't that their first time around the block?
Yeah, the 52 was their first, and the 56 was their second.
Well, then there you go. This is the first repeat since 19. Yeah, no, we got it, Dan. Me and you, baby.
Yeah,
we got there. All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Dan.
Actually, if you listen to your show through the day, or it was yesterday, y'all gave us the answer anyway.
Oh, did I?
So,
did I?
Well, you didn't, but I think Chris did.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, I need to listen more often.
I love your show. I mean, my twin brother and I just we just sit here and laugh all the time.
Well, I'm glad you do, Dan. What's your brother's name?
Steve.
Dan and Steve.
Actually, he's a combat medic.
Well,
so.
God bless him, and God bless you for listening, and thank you both. And thank your parents for me for not naming you with rhyming names just because you're twins.
You too. Yeah, Ronnie and Donnie and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Stacy and Tracy. Oh, awful. Awful. If you have twins, you don't have to do it, folks. You don't have. Just run away from it. Now, if I had twins, I have decided I have not been blessed with children, but I mean, even if I decide to adopt them, how about this? Walker and Texas Ranger. Huh? Pretty good. No? James is next up in the borough. James, I go to you prior to going to news only because it says Charleston under your name. Hello. How are you, James?
I'm good. I just wanted to let you know that people in Charleston call it the battery, not the battery. It's battery. That's how it's pronounced by locals.
Well, I'm not in my defense, James, I'm not a local.
Oh no, I know that. I'm just helping you fill out your memory bank.
Okay, so in Charleston, they go battery.
Battery. Yeah.
Okay.
And that is where the Civil War started.
Well, no question about that. Right off the battery.
Right off the battery. Have a good day.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, if I had to pick between Charleston and, I lived in Georgia, obviously. I lived just outside of Augusta, Georgia. That's where I grew up. And we made trips, one or two, to Savannah. And I thought Savannah was gorgeous on the eastern seaboard. But then I went to Charleston, and it's just it's a different world. I spent a little time in Charleston. My favorite time in Charleston was spent on a golf course where they said, beware of spiders. Let's see, spiders, snakes, alligators, and sharp reeds, in that order. And I always wondered how big those damn spiders were that they jumped in the pecking order above the snakes and the alligators. 12:32, Super Talk 99.7 WGN. It's time for news with Jay Harper.
Yes, it is 12:32, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got plenty of sunshine. We're up to 77 degrees, a little windy, but quite beautiful. But will that forecast last? We'll have that info coming right up. The Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee holding a hearing today to discuss a 32-hour work week in the U.S. with no loss in pay. Lawmakers and a panel of witnesses debating how workers should benefit from new technology and increase productivity. Here's Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders during his opening remarks, speaking in favor of a 32-hour work week.
Despite these long hours, the average worker in America makes almost $50 a week less than he or she did 50 years ago after adjusting for inflation.
Back here in Music City, passengers at Nashville International Airport have more than doubled in the last 10 years. That's according to the airport statistics. That data should drastically increase as BNA eyes 6 new European markets. Fox 17 in Nashville reporting that at a roundtable with Mayor Freddie O'Connell last week, BNA's CEO Doug Crulin says that his teams are working to increase international travel. So, what destinations are they looking at? How about Iceland, Ireland, the Netherlands, Germany, France, and possibly Italy? That is the latest news. Weather's on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Friends, we talk much about Members Nutrition because they are the sponsor of the Members Nutrition Super Text line. I want to dive a little deeper to tell you about Members Nutrition and what they bring to you as an organization and as a business. It's an opportunity. Many of us want to push away from the pharmaceuticals, the prescription drugs that sadly have taken over the United States of America and get back to a more of a natural way of living. And you do that by utilizing vitamins and supplements to help you with whatever issues that you might be having. Well, sadly, most of those at the brick and mortar shops are overpriced, and most of those at the brick and mortar shops come from China. It is a fact. I say this not as a besmirchment, but you know what? You do with that information what you will. Here's what I can tell you. Members Nutrition brings affordable and quality supplements to you at a fraction of the normal retail cost, and they are made right here in the good old USA. No matter what type of supplement you're in the market for, whether it's immunity, weight loss, detox like the Daily Defense Youthful Cleanse, men's health, women's health, relaxation supplements, they have it all. And right now, they're proud of their supplements. They're excited to introduce themselves to the Super Talk family. And so they're offering it at a 50% off discount right now. You don't have to put in any offer code. You don't have to do anything special. Just go to their website at membersnutrition.com. Membersnutrition.com. Now, these are already prices that are lower than their competitors. They simply do it lower. No code needed. You just have the discount automatically applied at checkout. Go now to membersnutrition.com to find out the Members Nutrition difference. I encourage you to do this. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Members Nutrition. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. Congressman Gary Palmer will be up in the 1 o'clock hour. I wanted to talk with Gary because I know how up he is on the subject of China. We have had many discussions over the years, not so many since I've been in Nashville, but many discussions over the years when I was in Birmingham. Gary Palmer, for those who do not know, is a 6th Congressional District representative representing the suburbs of Birmingham, Alabama. He also ascended to a position of leadership, and he is currently the policy chair or policy committee chair for the Republican Party. That's a part of leadership in which he galvanizes rights and answers questions about platform policy for the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. He is as knowledgeable about the threat that China presents to the United States of America as anybody that I know in Congress. And so, with that in mind, I want to talk to him about this real and present danger that we've been told China presents having access to ownership of the web application TikTok. Because, you know, there's a lot going on with the country nowadays. There's a hell of a lot going on right now with the southern border, with our disastrous energy policy, with our slow slide into another war. So it seems to me that the halls of Congress, they're tackling the biggest issue around TikTok. You know, forget the fact that roughly 90% of all of our pharmaceuticals come from China, and we put those in our bodies. We're told that there's a national security threat if you have TikTok on your phone. I want to know what that is, and we'll talk about it in the 1 o'clock hour. In the 2 o'clock hour, we'll center our attention on activities going on in the General Assembly with Representative Gino Bulso, who will stop by with us at about 2:05 this afternoon. Excited about that conversation. You on the phone, 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, 615-737-WWTN, either via phone lines or the Members Nutrition Super Text line. So by now, if you follow local news at all, you perhaps have heard about the search for a young man, 22-year-old University of Missouri student by the name of Riley Strain. Has this story reached you, Bell? You're always kind of a, dare I say, you're a weather bell for me with regard to when these stories break through. Sometimes I'm a little close to the forest to be able to see the trees. Has this story broke? It's okay if it hasn't. That's the whole point. Riley Strain, does that name mean anything to you?
No.
Have you heard the story about the young man that went missing from Luke Bryan's bar?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Okay,
yeah.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So if you're unfamiliar with the story, obviously we've got a lot of college-age students that come into Nashville to party, and a lot of them go down to Lower Broadway, and a lot of them get as drunk as Cooter Brown and, unable to find their butts from a hole in the ground if they had a compass and a flashlight, and somehow they make their way back to their hotels or whatever.
The overwhelming majority of them do.
Yes. So I want to relate this story to you and tell me, Belle, I think you're a good ballast on this story, because E came at me on this and she said, why aren't you talking about the responsibility that the bar has? And I said, what? What do you mean? Here's the story. So on March 8th, Riley Strain was visiting Nashville with a group of his fraternity brothers from the University of Missouri. At about 10 o'clock on that Friday night, Riley Strain was inebriated enough that it was noticed by the Luke Bryan bar staff that he was drunk, and they declined to continue to serve him. Now, I would note that it is a part of Tennessee law. The Alcohol Beverage and Control Board dictates that when bars recognize that you are already visibly and noticeably intoxicated, that they are no longer allowed to serve you alcoholic beverages. That's a part of the law.
Or then they become liable for what happens.
Correct. So the Luke Bryan Broadway bar did what they were supposed to do, and they said, we can't serve you, you need to leave. And they kicked him out of the bar at around 10 o'clock on Friday night. I don't know if he was aware where his fraternity brothers were at the time. We don't know a lot about this story, and I've not had the gaps filled in for me. But for whatever reason, his fraternity bros did not help him home.
The story, as I read it, was that they had become separated in the bar. They had seen each other across, but they were not, like, in a group together.
So maybe, and I'm trying to play this out in my head, like, we've been downtown together, right?
Yeah.
And it gets crazy down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone at a bar were to tell me, hey, man, we think you're overserved, maybe you need to take it on home. If I'm there with a group of people, I guess maybe he wasn't in his right. He was too drunk. Because my natural inclination would be, that's fine. Can I go tell my guys that you're making me leave? I don't know where they are. They're on the third floor.
That doesn't sound unreasonable at all.
And I would think that Luke Bryan the bar would allow him to do that if he was there with other people. I would suspect, pure speculation on my part, he didn't try to do that. Because if you look at some of the video, this guy is obviously blitzed out of his mind.
Well, I think when he was talking to the ABC officer, the guy pushed him down. Oh, I'm sorry. That's a different story.
Yeah, it's a different story. So the Tennessee Alcohol Beverage and the Tennessee Alcohol and Beverage Commission has now launched a probe into Luke Bryan's downtown bar. Before we get into the probe, the question that my wife asked me, and I think it's a reasonable position, and I think it's a good conversation point to have. She said, well, if the bar knows that he's drunk and they're kicking him out, do they not have a responsibility to notify the police? In other words, if he's too drunk to be in a bar, isn't he too drunk to be on the sidewalk?
Are you asking that ethically or legally?
Both.
Okay. I don't believe legally they are required to do that.
My position on it is legally the bar is under no requirement to report that. And the bar is probably trying to do the kid a favor in as much as if he does encounter the police, he's probably going to end up
Yeah, he's going to get arrested
for public drunkenness. So they're probably trying to help him out. And the last thing the bar would consider is that he would go missing. Now, for those that don't know the end of the story, he left the bar. He walked across Broadway. He went down Church. He went over to Church Street. He cut down Church Street for a while, and then eventually ended up, was it First Avenue? He was right along the river.
Yeah.
And he disappeared. And no one has seen him since. The rampant speculation is that he somehow fell in the river, the Cumberland.
Yeah.
And that he's just not been found yet. You know, I guess we could hold on or cling to some hope. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speculate any further as to what happened to him. It's sad one way or the other because nothing good has happened to him. Something bad has happened to him.
And I read in the story that when they tried to call him, it was just immediately going to voicemail as if the phone was turned off, which is what would happen if it got waterlogged.
Right. So one way or the other, the search for Riley Strain continues. What is the responsibility of the bar here is the question. So legally, I don't know that the bar has any responsibility outside of, hey, you can't be here anymore. This is a grown man. I mean, I understand a young man, but he's 22 years old. So we have some level, and what I was talking to Erica about this morning was, well, are we going to demand of every bar on Lower Broadway that anytime they have to tell a drunk that they can't be served anymore and they need to leave, that bar then needs to report that individual to the police or get him home safely? Because I don't know that we want that necessarily, because I think that's going to change the dynamics of downtown quite considerably. Secondarily, and what Erica said at the time was, well, do they not have a drunk tank or something in and around downtown where they can perhaps not arrest people but manage them? And I don't know that that's the police's responsibility either. I mean, I understand that there's concern about this young man. From an emotional standpoint.
Not exactly Mayberry, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't Otis, and it's not Mayberry. There's way too many people down there pounding them back in order to individually take care of each one of them and make sure that everybody's okay. I don't know that that's the right answer. I understand the concerns and the questions about what the responsibilities of the bar would be. But here's the interesting aspect of this. Just this morning, it was announced by the Tennessee ABC board that they are looking into Luke Bryan's downtown bar as to whether or not they overserved Strain before kicking him out. TABC Director of Legislation, Policy, and Communication, Aaron Rummage, told the Tennessean in a statement that the investigation would determine if any violation occurred. Rummage declined to provide any additional details about what led to the investigation. TC Restaurant Group, owner and operator of Bryan's Bar, it's the Luke's 32 Bridge is what it's called, said that they are working with the Metro Nashville Police Department to provide security camera footage and that they are doing everything in their power to help facilitate a safe return and praying for a safe return for Riley Strain. Crews have already searched the riverbank to try to determine if Strain had washed ashore or if he had fallen near the river after a surveillance video showed him stumbling along Nashville streets. Strain was last seen on video surveillance at 9:52 near Gay and First Avenue.
Do you know if there is a legal standard as to what overserved means? Because, you know, different people are going to get drunk at different points due to, you know, body mass and, you know, height and physical condition.
Right. So you can't cap it at a number of drinks.
Right.
Because some people can consume larger amounts of alcohol, like you said, because of their body mass, or some people are more susceptible to the effects of alcohol than others. So some people would get, you know.
Yeah, my question is, does Luke's Bar have a yardstick they're able to use to comply with that law.
I think it's all speculative.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's all observational. It's all about the barkeep observing the actions of the individual across from them, and if they appear visibly drunk, then they're not going to serve you.
If they appear visibly drunk at that point, are we going to call that having been overserved?
I mean, I remember, these are rules that have been put in place to prevent individuals that are already drunk from getting drunker and to try to save people from themselves. I don't know that we can go any further than this. I remember an incident in my life several years ago where I accidentally spilled. I was making a Bloody Mary to take to the golf course, and I spilled some vodka on my shirt. I had a Bloody Mary at the golf course. I left the golf course later on, early afternoon, like 1 o'clock. I had one Bloody Mary. I had not drank anything else. I went into a ABC store. This was in Alabama. And I was attempting to buy some alcohol for an event that we were having later on that night. And the guy behind the counter said, "Sir, I can't sell you alcohol." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I smell it on you." And I said, "Oh, I spilled that earlier today. I told him the story." He goes, "It doesn't matter. If I smell alcohol on you, I'm not allowed to sell." I said, "I'm not drunk at all." He goes, I don't doubt that, but I'm not allowed." So, certain states have certain cut and dry rules that they give as guidelines to the individuals that are selling alcohol to the general public. I don't see anything else that Luke Bryan's bar kicked him out. So on the one hand, it's like, don't they have a responsibility above and beyond kicking him out to make sure that he's safe? On the other hand, the reason that they kicked him out, the reason that they stopped serving him, were the rules set forth by the ABC board. I'm not saying those rules are bad things, but
at what point is it no longer their responsibility, or at what point do you just blame them entirely?
At what point does it have to? And that's exactly right. And for me, it all goes back to the individual. We need to gravitate toward individual freedom comes with individual responsibility. And if you're going to have the freedom to get drunk as Cooter Brown, sad as it is, you have the responsibility to make sure that you can get home safely and without putting other people in danger. 1253, Super Talk 99.7, WTN. Defend Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm, and they're based right here in Middle Tennessee. You hear me talking about Brink, Fiddler, and Defend Systems often. I just saw where they have a new TECC course upcoming at the world-famous Clock Store, and I'm certain that I'm going to be telling you more about that as we move through March and toward April. It always fills up. It's a limited space. I've gone through this course, and it is absolutely incredible. It's Tactical Emergency Casualty Care Course, TECC. And once you go through the course, you are certified for 4 years. And the knowledge, the information that you get from the course is lifelong. It is truly invaluable in terms of your ability to respond to a crisis. But more to the point, if you're a decision maker at a church, at a school, at a place of business, anywhere that people gather, I encourage you to contact Defense Systems today. As I mentioned, life safety and security consultation. That involves active shooter response training, emergency and intruder action plans, workplace violence prevention, as well as site surveys, security improvement consultation, and rapid response medical training, all tailored to your facility. It's time to get trained. Hope is not a plan. Let's call Defense Systems today. Go to defensesystems.com for more information or give them a call at 615-236-6484. 236-6484. It's Defense Systems.
Good afternoon. It is 1 minute past 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. 77 degrees, sunny, but a little windy, and a change in store weather-wise. We've got your forecast coming up in just a few. A federal judge in Florida is hearing arguments today over whether to dismiss the classified documents case against former President Donald Trump. ABC's national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has more.
Donald Trump's attorneys say the classified documents case should be thrown out because they argue as president he had the right to decide for himself what papers were personal rather than presidential records that belong in the National Archives. Lawyers for Trump also say the charges against their client are unconstitutionally vague. Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, appeared skeptical of that, saying it would be quite an extraordinary step to throw out the case.
Miami preparing for what is typically the wildest weekend of spring break.
City officials say it's been a pretty mild spring break so far, but Miami Beach Commissioner David Suarez says this coming weekend is when they see the most bloodshed. It's the heart of spring break and the weekend before Miami Music Week, when young people from all over the world come to party and attend music festivals. The city's taken to cracking down on spring break partiers as things have gotten out of hand in recent years. The Miami Herald reports 80% of arrests on South Beach so far have been locals, an improvement over years past.
Here in the Nashville area, a bystander critically injured as shots were fired during a car chase along Antioch Pike last night. The shooting happened at the corner of Antioch Pike and Richards Road near Haywood Lane. This happened at about 9:30. Metro Police who responded to the scene reported one vehicle was chasing another one down Antioch Pike when the lead vehicle pulled into a parking lot and started shooting. The victim was waiting inside a vehicle for food at a food truck when he was struck in the head by the rampant gunfire. He was rushed to Vanderbilt Medical Center and remains in critical condition. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
You hear mention of storms coming through the area. Now, these do not seem to be severe enough that you would need to consider getting into your storm shelter, but do you even have one? And if you don't have a storm shelter, I have a place for you where you can find one, and you can check them out at the Safe House. Now, normally we talk about safes, gun safes or jewelry safes, home safes, generally speaking, and corporate safes. We also talk about vault doors quite a bit. You know, a lot of homes nowadays, they come preloaded with their safe. They build them into the facility, and they come to Mark and his team at the Safe House for vault doors. But they also sell storm shelters for you. You can find them there, and you can look at them. You can walk into one right there in their beautiful facility right on 4th Avenue South. Now, Mark and his team have more safes than you can possibly imagine, and March is rebate time at the Safe House. You can save hundreds and hundreds of dollars, for example, on a Browning safe. Plus, you get all of the rebates, up to $500 in rebates. And remember, no sales tax on gun safes at the Safe House. Mark and his team keep prices low. They do charge you for delivery, though, because it costs money to keep a staff of professional delivery drivers and a team to deliver your safe and sound. And you want to make sure that you trust these folks in your home. Don't let a crackhead deliver your safe. Don't let someone from another country deliver your safe. It's not safe. The Safe House, 4th Avenue South, right across the street from City Cemetery. Go see Mark and his team and tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Safe House. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A tremendous amount of response, especially on the Members Nutrition Super Text line regarding our conversation about the missing Riley Strain. Sad, 22-year-old University of Missouri student went missing on Lower Broad, seen on various surveillance cameras, obviously impaired, obviously drunk. He was kicked out of Luke Bryan Bar, and subsequently he went missing. There's a lot of conversation about what the responsibility for the bar is, what his individual responsibility is. I will just note this before we get to Gary Palmer. Bell, I've received a couple of pieces of information. I've not verified it to be true, but one thing that one super texter did tell us is that what he was told, and I don't know if it's true or not, is that the frat boys were trying to wrap up and pay their bill, and they moved Riley Strain out of the bar, and so the bouncers physically separated Riley Strain and got him out of the bar while everybody else was paying up. And at that point, once those guys got out of the bar to try to find their buddy was gone. If that's true, then we need to talk about policies about how they handle these situations. Well, because they separated their drunk buddy.
He would just, I mean, that can't be that much time, and he decides to take off without them, and they were,
he's drunk.
But there's still something that just feels weird about it.
It does.
And just to address this, we were not laughing at any portion of that story whatsoever. No. We were accused of that on the Super Text line, and there's nothing that we find humorous about this story at all.
Yeah, the Super Texter 2308 says, why wouldn't they be responsible? They served him until he got that way. And by the way, you and your buddy laughing about all of this is pretty low class. No one is laughing about the missing Riley Strain. Nobody. We laugh and have a good time on this show. And if we were doing anything inappropriate, more people than you would be talking about it. But you're a hater, and that's okay. We like the hater listeners as much as the lover listeners. So nobody's laughing about this. And secondarily, you don't know what you're talking about. When you say they served him until he got that way, you don't know if he was drunk when he went into that bar. I know there's a lot of bar hopping that happens on Lower Broad.
Yeah, he could have consumed, let's just say he consumed 90% of what he had before he got there.
And he just tipped over the edge.
Yeah,
we don't know.
We don't know that.
Right. Or
maybe that was the very first bar he went to.
Yeah, we don't know that either. So you accuse us of speculation, yet you speculate yourselves. Anyway, we'll continue the discussion moving down the road on that matter. It's always good to catch up with my good friend and House of Representatives member Gary Palmer. I've known Gary for well over a decade now. I know him to be a good man, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'm going to tell you, I am friends with Gary Palmer. But we might disagree on this subject, but I know that he's one of the more knowledgeable individuals about the threat that China is to the United States of America, both short-term and long-term, which is why I thought to call him and invite him on the show yet again. Congressman Gary Palmer joins us. He is a 6th District Representative from the state of Alabama. He's also in leadership in the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. Hey, Gary, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm shocked that you have any haters on your show. Shocked.
New city, same old story, Gary. Well, if you're not hating, then you're not motivating. Haters are motivators. So let's. I think we might disagree on this, but you have the ability to educate me on this, Gary. The issue yesterday involving TikTok. I understand the concerns. I understand the oversight. I understand all of those things. But as I posted on social media, a government that has the amount of power that would grant them the ability to kill TikTok is the same government that will have the power to kill X or Facebook or any other social media platform that they deem, quote unquote, a national security threat. Tell me how I'm wrong here.
Well, I think that it's conflating the issue a bit, and TikTok is totally different from X, Facebook, or the Matt Murphy Show, for that matter, in that it literally is a threat to our national security. And we had tons of high schoolers calling in leading up to the vote. And Matt, here's one of the things you might find interesting. They knew that the ages of these young people, these kids, so they shut off their TikTok app. And the way the kids could get it turned back on is that if they called a member of Congress, and as soon as the member's office answered, a staffer answered, their app came back on. Now, that should be of concern to everybody, that they know that much about you, and they have the ability to know that when that phone is answered in a congressional office, the app comes back on. The other thing that, and I can't go into the classified stuff, but I can tell you stuff that's in the public domain, is that, as you know, TikTok is owned by ByteDance. And I heard some folks try to explain that it's not a Chinese-owned company. It doesn't have to be. The laws under the Chinese Communist Party are that any Chinese company must deliver their information, their financial information, their data collection to the Chinese government upon request. And the Chinese government instituted a policy known as golden shares, where the Chinese Communist Party can buy shares of a company, and in the case of most of them, it's 1%. But that gives them the ability to put a member of the Chinese Communist Party on their board. So you have a guy named Wu Shutang, who you can look him up. It's spelled WSHUGANG, on the ByteDance board. He then hired the guy that they call the editor-in-chief, who was in charge of censorship of the internet in China. Within the corporate office of ByteDance, they have their own Communist Party group. There are 138 employees who are members of the Communist Party. And Matt, I think you know this without me saying it, but China is the existential threat to the United States and to the free world. And this is a huge problem. And like I said, I can't go into the classified information, but I had no hesitation whatsoever in voting for a bill that says ByteDance must divest TikTok in order for it to continue to operate in the United States, and they have 6 months to do it.
Now, I'm gonna ask you a question, and Gary, you and I know each other a long time. We're friends, and you've never shied away from strongly expressing your opinion, even if I disagree with you. And I just want to say that up front for people that have never heard us talk before.
Yeah.
But the same House of Representatives that voted to reauthorize our own government's ability to spy on American citizens through FISA is saying that the Chinese can't. So this is the same group of people that voted to authorize FISA to be able to spy on us.
Well, we didn't authorize FISA to spy on American citizens in violation of your Fourth and Fifth Amendment.
They have been. They most certainly have been.
They have done it, and we're trying to first of all to stop that. And what happened with FISA in December is that it was reauthorized through the end of April. The FISA reform bill is being worked on now, has not yet been brought to the floor. But we're going to try
so
to
we're working on that.
Doesn't happen again.
We're working on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I talked to Speaker Johnson about it, and he assured me that we're going to resolve this in the right way. But FISA is there, the intent of FISA, and especially with the open border, is there to protect us from people with ill intent. what China's doing, and this is, since you brought it up, it's amazing to me that people raise concerns about the possibility of our own government having access to their data without their knowledge, but they don't mind China having it. That's just incomprehensible.
No, I want to make the decision as to who gets my who is authorized to access my information. I don't want the government making that decision for me.
Well, I don't want anybody to have it.
Well, I don't either, and I don't either, and I think
committing a crime.
I agree that it's best practice. Here's what bugs me about it, and maybe you can help me, right? So I remember way back in the day, my grandma telling me that I wasn't supposed to do so. I would never question my grandfather, by the way. Otherwise, you feel the wrath of Pa. You know my granddad. So, but my grandmother would tell me to do something, and I would say, well, why do I have to do that? And she would say, because I say so. And in this conversation about TikTok, we're told that TikTok is a real and present danger to national security. And when I ask what that real and present danger is, I'm told the same thing. I can't tell you. Can you tell me what the real and present danger to national security would be, even if China has access to my phone?
I cannot tell you. Well, you're not a clear and present danger to our national security. It's not you, Matt. And I don't do TikTok, so it's not me. You don't. The thing is it is the aggregate data, and it is certain information that they get from certain people that could cause a massive problem for us. But the aggregate data is the problem. If you were the only one on TikTok, I wouldn't care if China had your data. If they want to know what Matt Murphy's up to, they just listen to your show. But it's.
But what I mean, help me.
Obviously, we can't talk about classified information in a public forum.
But help me. I mean, and I'm not asking you to do that. And Mark, Congressman Green, who I know is a friend of yours and he's a friend of the show's, he got frustrated with me because he thought I was asking him about classified. I'm not doing that. I am trying to. I'm trying to ask for help to understand how this would work. That it would be a national security threat, even if the worst of the worst is happening through TikTok, and TikTok manages to access data on my phone that I allow them or authorize them to access through the app. I mean, we're not talking about content on the app. We're talking about the back channel stuff that they're able to get to because I have the app. I just don't understand how we make the leap from my personal data being compromised to that becoming a national security concern.
Well, I think that it starts with your entry to this discussion with you, and that you and I have known each other for 10 years, and I'm trustworthy.
I do.
I would not do this if I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. And I'm not going to share classified information. At some point, maybe that we'll be able to do that. But what people need to understand is that if this were just, think about this. I don't know. I haven't verified this, but I've been heard that there's been a package put together, private investors, to pay $160 billion to ByteDance to divest TikTok. But the Chinese Communist Party has blocked it. This is not like any other company that you know in the United States. The way things operate in China are totally different. And you think about it, if that company had any sense, had any liberty to make decisions in terms of investments and capital expenditures and what's best for the company, they'd take an offer like that.
The problem with and this is not personal between you and I, it's more broadly what we're hearing is just trust us. We can't tell you, but trust us. The problem, Gary, is that we've done that in the past, and we've seen the abuses. I was a supporter of the Patriot Act, but sadly, I've seen the manner in which the Patriot Act has been abused against the American population, and so I don't suggest that you would do it. I don't suggest that those that I trust, conservatives that I trust in Washington, D.C., would do it. But I would suggest that the same type of principles might be used not to protect the Americans, but to abuse that power to potentially infiltrate our. I mean, I know that I'm asking the same question a different way, but I'm just trying to figure out how in the world we go from, oh, China got some stuff on your phone, to that is endangering the security of the United States of America. And maybe I just don't get the technology involved. I don't know.
I would say most of what people put up doesn't, but in aggregate, what they're doing and how they're influencing people is an enormous problem, Matt. And again, and you can't conflate it with the abuses of a few people in the federal government. I'm doing everything I can to help President Trump get reelected.
Me too.
To deal with the abuses that have taken place, and not just in the Department of Justice and their intelligence community, but across the board. But I just think that people need to, and I'm asking you to trust my judgment on this, because this is not something I take lightly. You know that I'm in some respects libertarian in my views about privacy, but not to the degree that you are, but
no, but I mean, you understand that we're talking about the same. And I know the government's a big thing, and I get accused sometimes of wagging my finger at the wrong people. But, I'm dealing with a government that allowed, and it's the executive branch, that allowed a Chinese spy balloon to traverse the entire continental United States of America. I'm dealing with a federal government that currently allows for almost 90% of all of our pharmaceutical companies to go through China. I mean, aren't our pharmaceuticals made over there? The things that we put in our body. So I know that. I mean, GE Appliance.
Most of our pharmaceuticals are made in India with ingredients
supplied by China.
The majority of the ingredients that come from China. But you were about to hit on something about GE. The issue that we have that is a national security issue that people don't even realize is we're relying on China for critical minerals and rare earth elements that none of our electronics will work without.
Well, that's true.
We have I said this a little while ago. The existential threat to the country and to the free world is not climate change. It's not NIL, for that crying out loud, for all those football fans that think it is. It is China. And,
all right.
and we've been asleep at the wheel.
Hold your thought for just a second. Gary Palmer's with us. I have the utmost respect for Gary, even if we might disagree on this. And I feel like we're disagreeing on it because Gary says that there are certain things that he can't tell me from an intelligence or security standpoint. And that's fine. I respect that. It's 123, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Quick timeout. Back in a moment. I want you to listen to Matt Murphy pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whether you're listening live, maybe you're joining us on a podcast, maybe you're looking us up on social media and the like. But when you're not, and I understand that you don't do it 24/7, when you are looking for a different podcast, I encourage you to go over to the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. Steve Abramowitz does a great job. He is new, relatively speaking, like me, into the Middle Tennessee area. He's immersed himself into Tennessee politics, immersed himself into politics affecting all of us around the United States of America. And he's been there, done that when it comes to liberal infiltration in our conservative values. So he is well positioned to talk about politics on local matters, on statewide matters, and on the national front. And he does so frequently. He's the #1 show in politics on Podomatic. You can find him on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcast apps. He is Steve Abramowitz. It is the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. It's more than just politics, although he does a lot of politics. It's entertainment, culture, authors, artists, sports figures, and every so often you might even see Matt Murphy pop it up on a podcast with Mill Creek View. Go by mcview.us. That's mcview.us. That's their website. Great newsletter right there. Steve is the CEO and editor-in-chief, and I invite you to go over to the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast.
U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer continuing to take heat for his remarks this morning about Israeli elections. And more info about what Matt's been talking about, the TikTok legislation before Congress. That's all coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mr. Harper. It's 1:28 right now. A few more moments with our good friend, Congressman Gary Palmer, discussing that TikTok situation. And you know what? The reaction has been very similar to mine, Gary, and that is, I understand where you're coming from. I have all the respect in the world where you're coming from, but just walk me through what you would recommend the best case scenario would be with regard to TikTok. And I know a lot of people are focused on the content. I'm not focused on the content. You can get, 2-minute stupid videos of people falling down anywhere. But your suggestion is if the company ByteDance divests control of this and sells it to someone else that do not have ties to China, then that would be government hands-off at that point?
Yeah, this has absolutely nothing to do with content. I mean, if people want to do stupid things and other people are willing to watch it and pay them something for it, that's their business. But it's the conduct of the company and the control that the Chinese Communist Party has over this. And you've got young people out there that think communism's just fine, Matt. They don't care. They have no idea when you talk about a threat to our national security what that even means.
Well, we don't have. Wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, Gary. We don't have any idea what that means because y'all won't tell us. I've asked you 14 times what the national security threat is, and you can't tell me that you can't tell me.
I can't tell you. I can't even tell Ann.
Well, then how are we supposed to know?
Well, at some point, Matt, you've got to trust us. My number one job as a member of Congress is your family's security, my family's security, the security of this state and nation. And I cannot, at any level, forget that. And that's what we're trying to do. When it comes out of committee 50-0, that ought to tell you something, because I'm on that committee, and I was in that classified hearing with the Democratic colleagues on that committee, and we don't agree on hardly anything. But we understand the clear and present danger that this presents for us. So if ByteDance divests itself of TikTok, as long as they don't sell it to Russians or Iranians or North Koreans, they sell it to a non-adversary, we're good with that. And people can have that, and they can post videos of people falling off a balcony. That's their business.
I wish
it's not about the content, it's about the conduct.
I wish it were just you that you were asking me to trust, but it's not. You're asking me to trust the FBI, and I do not. You're asking me to trust the NSA, and I do not. You're asking me to trust the CIA, and I do not, Gary. I do not trust any of those organizations, and they broke that trust. I didn't break that trust. They broke that trust, and it's up to them, those organizations, and by extension, you guys, to rebuild that trust for the American people. And sadly, it has been broken to the point that the vast majority of the American people do not trust you when you say trust us.
Yeah, well, you do not want to wait until a bunch of people get killed.
Well, and once again, nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what that means.
A number of things. It could mean we wind up in war with China, and some of these kids getting drafted. I don't know.
Well, look, I believe in you. I do not believe in some of those organizations that I mentioned, and I don't know that they've broken down certain areas of that trust, and hopefully Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. Hopefully we get to the bottom of some of that nonsense that's been going on over the past 6 or 8 or 10 years and beyond, and hopefully we rebuild some of that trust that's been lost with the American people.
Well, just remember that Donald Trump, when he was president, wanted to deal with TikTok while he was still in office. So he understands it. I understand it. And I just hope people will understand that we're trying to protect them, trying to protect this country. And you're right. Our intelligence agencies and our Department of Justice has abused its authority and its power, and it's got to stop, and they got to be held accountable. But that's totally separate from what we're talking about right here.
I do not understand, and I don't want to belabor it, and you've made your point, and it's well spoken by you, and I know I've got to go, and you do too. But
All right.
Garrett, let me just say one thing. I do not understand what the harm is in trying to help the American people understand what the threat is. And everyone that's spoken about this matter acts as if they even speak it, that it's going to cause some calamity that's going to cause people to die. And if you would just be honest, I mean, not honest, but open with the American people in a way where we understand the threat that you're talking about, I think you'd have a lot more people on your side.
Well, let me just say this real quick, is when we start talking about stuff that we get in a classified setting, once the enemy finds out that we know what we know, then they start looking at how did we find out. And then you compromise assets, whether it's a human asset or a technical asset. So there's some things that you just cannot tell people in a public setting because there are other factors involved. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, Gary, it's a good conversation. It's a good back and forth, and I appreciate the exchange as always, and I appreciate your friendship. We'll talk again very soon, my friend. Take care.
You're a great man. Take
care. There's a Gary Palmer. We'll go to news. Jay's patiently waiting. I'm way late. It's 1:34 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 1:34, and I'm Jay Harper. I've got your top stories. We're looking at 79 degrees, plenty of sun, a little windy, but the forecast, she is a-changin'. We'll have that for you soon. House Republican leadership today still blasting Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's remarks on Israel, calling the comments, among other things, inappropriate and disgraceful at the GOP retreat in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Schumer earlier today called on Israel to hold new elections, saying he believes Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace in the region amid a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Here's House Majority Leader Steve Scalise.
It's disturbing to see the Senate Majority Leader attacking our strongest ally in the Middle East, Israel, at this time of war.
More on the TikTok discussion that you've been hearing Matt get into here this morning, or actually this afternoon, following this week's passage of a House bill compelling TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell off the app or face a ban from U.S. app stores and services. Senate members are debating the bill's future as they prepare to bring it to the floor. Speaking to reporters inside the Capitol today, North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis says that Americans need to understand lawmakers have their best interest when considering this kind of legislation.
This isn't about shutting down. This isn't about shutting down TikTok. This is about making sure that that very information that many of them are using to interact on it could be shared with the Chinese Communist Party. They should view this as a threat. Rather that the threat of their information being abused by the Chinese Communist Party should be their concern.
That is the latest news. Weather's on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
I am told by authorities that know at USS, United Structural Systems, that it is currently waterproofing season. The reason that we call this waterproofing season is we have a lot of these types of systems that move through, like we're going to see later on tonight, where a large amount of rain comes down in a very short period of time. And that puts a strain. If you already have waterproofing issues in your home, that puts a strain on your home. It puts a strain on the walls. It puts a strain on the places that become oversaturated and tends to pick up volume and create even more bowing in your basement walls, or even worse, calamity. So let USS, if you know you have a problem, or if you feel like you might have a problem, you know it when you smell it. You know it when you see it. If you smell that musty smell, if you have a basement area that you won't go into because of it, if you have a musty crawl space odor, if you've not checked in a while, why not check? And then get USS out to your home. These are problem solvers. They're not upsellers. They're not selling things on commission. They're not trying to get you to buy something that you don't need. They are there to solve your problem and protect your home from damage and even disaster. USS, United Structural Systems. When it comes to large home repairs, they're the best. It's USS. Give them a call today. Serving Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky, and man, oh man, since 1994, they've been satisfying customers. 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS. They guarantee their best. Any thoughts on our conversation with Gary Palmer? Love to hear from you. 615-737-9986. There was a reason that I specifically asked Gary on to discuss this matter with me. One, I know Gary is very knowledgeable about the depth of the Chinese concern that we all should have, and I believe in it as well. I believe, unlike Gary, that the biggest existential threat that we face in the short term, well, no, I wouldn't say that Gary would not disagree with this, or would disagree with this, but the southern border is our short-term existential threat. The long-term existential threat that concerns me the most is our national debt. Did you know that we add $1 trillion to our national debt roughly every 100 days? It's almost impossible to understand. The numbers are so great, it's almost impossible to understand. That we are currently, at our rate of overspending, adding almost $1 trillion to our national debt every 100 days at current spending levels. That's unsustainable. But I think the two go hand in hand. Our tremendous debt burden goes hand in hand with the ability that the Red Chinese have to take over the United States of America as the number one economic force in the world. And when they do that, they won't have to invade this country. They'll buy us. So I fully get it. The Chinese are not good actors here. Don't get me wrong. But my grandfather was the finest man I ever knew in my life, and my grandfather told me one time that every man deserves to go to hell in his own fashion, so long as I'm not sending you to hell with me. What does that mean when it comes to politics? That I ought to, if I want to expose myself and my situation in a negative way, I should be able to do so unless and until you demonstrate to me that I'm putting others at risk. And that's where we come to loggerheads. The reason that we had Gary on, the reason I made that decision, and I told Bel K this, I said, I have such respect for Gary. I've known him for so long. I know him to be a good man. And I believe that he is a good conservative. And I know him to be as frustrated as anyone about the state of affairs in Washington, D.C. And I know that we're going to disagree on this. And so I had Gary on because I knew that I probably would not go off on him. Now, some of you might suggest that he deserved it. I was fearful if I had, Burchett on or Ogles or, well, I guess Ogles didn't vote for it, did he?
He and Desjardins both did not
We're
vote.
out. They just didn't vote.
Yeah, they didn't vote at all.
And we don't know whether they were there or not.
Yeah, I'm not certain. I tried to look it up yesterday and find out, but I couldn't see anything. All it just said was not voting.
But every other Republican, and well, every other congressman voted yes in Tennessee, as did most other congressmen. Why does this remind me? This reminds me, I want to see if my memory's correct on this, and we'll get to your calls momentarily. For some reason, this nebulous national security threat thing, like, look, I can't tell you what I can't tell you. It reminds me, believe it or not, I was more of a liberal when I was in school. There are some people that listen to this show on a daily basis that think I'm a liberal now. I don't know why, but they do. But I'm a libertarian with a small L, and I've never considered myself a conservative, never considered myself a Republican, although I get classified in those ways quite often, and I don't mind it because I think conservatives are good people, Republicans are good people. But I remember having these arguments. My best friend in the world, Wayne Gregory, his father was in Army intelligence. Retired. He had been in the military for like 25 years. And at the time that I'm talking to him, he was head of security over a major international hotel in Atlanta, Georgia. And I would go visit Wayne on the weekends. We would go to his house on the weekends to enjoy the pool and whatnot. And, college students are the smartest people on planet Earth. So Wayne and I would get into arguments with Mr. Gregory about America's place in the world and about any number of different things. And it would always end the same way. With Mr. Gregory saying, look, guys, I was in Army intelligence for 25 years, and I know things that prove my argument that I can't tell you. Well, then what the hell are we doing here, dude? We're having this robust debate, and the debate always ends with him saying, well, I know things that prove me right and prove you guys wrong. Well, what are those things? I can't tell you. Isn't that what this feels like? It reminded me of something else, too, and I want to see if I remember this commercial correctly. Listen to this.
There is a bear in the woods. For some people, the bear is easy to see. Others don't see it at all. Some people say the bear is tame. Others say it's vicious and dangerous. Since no one can really be sure who's right, isn't it smart to be as strong as the bear? If there is a bear.
Yeah, that was a much celebrated ad in the 1980s. It was a Reagan-Bush ad from 1984 called The Bear. And it ends with a piece. It shows a photograph of Ronald Reagan, and it says, President Reagan, prepared for peace. In other words, there's a bear in the woods. We don't know if there's a bear or not a bear, but there might be a bear. I mean, they were talking about Russia, and it was a little more concrete what the threat was. But it feels like this is a lot of that, but they can't even identify what the real threat is. And I'm not saying there's not a threat. I'm not saying there's not a bear. What I'm saying is in 2024, with everything that we know that's gone on over the past 10 years at least, and you could go back much longer than that. Look, you're talking to somebody that believes that the FBI has been so corrupted that it needs to be dissolved. And I'm not far from suggesting that the CIA and the NSA and some other of these organizations need to join them. And whatever good that they do needs to be reborn from the ashes of a destroyed FBI. I don't trust the FBI. And I do agree with many of you. The scariest thing that Gary said, and once again, this is not personal, is trust us. I don't trust you. I do not trust the government. I will not trust the government. Not with my individual liberty. Not with my individual liberty. And this is a liberty matter. Thomas is next in Lebanon. Hey, Thomas. Glad you called. How are you?
Hey, Matt. Doing good. I think back to, like, the interview you just had, and, of course, what stands out to me is what you just touched on, which is trust us. I think back to 2020 during COVID when they said trust us. Look how that turned out. I think this is a power grab, this banning TikTok. I think that, I think it's the government trying to tip the scale, put their thumb on the backs of the people and have control. That's what I think. I don't see how it's a national security threat. So what if the Chinese Communist Party has my biometric data like my face, if they're accessing the camera and my picture? I don't really care, and I don't see how that is a national security threat. People want to know why Trump is so popular. It's for these reasons right here, because we can't trust the mainstream politicians anymore, and that's why people like Trump are so popular. And I'll hang up and listen to what you got to say about that.
Well, thank you, Thomas. I do think that Donald Trump was going a long way toward dissolving or draining some of the swampiness of the deep state. Now, we need the state. It's the deep state, the embedded bureaucracy that's most concerning. It's these agencies that consider themselves extra-constitutional that concern me. Agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which has always been the Federal Bureau of Investigation by design must be constantly monitored for corruption and for overstepping their boundaries. It is by design that they want to take the easy way out. It is by design that we must put the safeguards in place to prevent them from violating our individual liberties and our civil liberties. The nature of the organization suggests that they're going to do that if they are left unabated, if they're left unchecked. The whole of the deep state in government is the same thing. On the flip side of this, I'm not even saying that all of these people aren't right. So for all of you saying, it's data collection or it's whatever, I understand the point. What I'm suggesting is, regardless of the risk, if you are going to limit our personal freedoms and liberties to the point that you limit business being able to do business with the American population because of a, quote, national security threat, if you have that ability, then you owe it to the American people to explain what that threat is in a way that makes it understandable. I don't want to put anybody at risk. I don't want to put sources and methods at risk. We overclassify things in this country because the government politicians want to protect themselves from you, not from anyone else, not from China, from you. We overclassify, which is why Donald Trump's in the garbage mess that he's in, which is why I long said that Joe Biden shouldn't be charged with anything except for lying and for being a general jerk. My frustration with the classification documents cases is the manner in which one was handled versus the manner in which another was handled. It's the two-tier system. No, I'm not going to just trust. I'm not. The 9 most dangerous words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Ronald Wilson Reagan, 152, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm a lot of things, most of them negative. Hairless is not one of them. I've not lost my hair, although I was concerned about a little bit of thinning that I thought might be happening on the backside. And so I knew who to go to. I did my research, and I recognized that the best in the business is PAI. PAI Medical. They do it the right way. They're the We Grow Hair people. Guys, you know, I get it. I understand that you don't want to think about it. I understand that you want to ignore it and pretend that it's going to go away. But if you're losing your hair, no matter what your age might be, you need to deal with that. And if you're not one of these beautiful people that have a nice round head and you can shave it off and go that route, why would you do that anyway? But if you're not one of those folks, you need to get with PAI Medical and find out what they can do to assist you. I was there yesterday for laser treatments. This is low-impact laser therapy that helps make sure that it minimizes any level of thinning that might occur down the road. It's the first step in protecting that beautiful head of hair that you might still have. And if you're further along in your hair loss journey, they can blanch that as well at We Grow Hair. Their multi-unit hair grafting procedure, it's a trademark procedure, gives you more hair in one procedure and saves you time and saves you money. And it's backed by the only company that I believe in, We Grow Hair. Go to WeGrowHair.com. That's WeGrowHair.com or 615-376-6010. 376-6010 for the good people at We Grow Hair.
goal was to help people, and
Good afternoon. It is 2 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We are at 78 degrees now. We've got sun and a bit of wind. Your weekend forecast looks pretty nice. Tomorrow, well, not so much. We'll fill you in here in a bit. With violence ongoing in Haiti, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby today asked about U.S. involvement in helping the country regain peace.
There's been some good progress on the diplomatic front, certainly good progress from the United States on the economic support front. But we have a lot more work to do to get this multinational security support mission up and running and on the ground to assist the Haitian National Police.
House Republican leadership today, while at the GOP retreat in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, continuing to blast Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's remarks on Israel, calling the comments, among other things, inappropriate and disgraceful. Schumer earlier today called on Israel to hold new elections, saying he believes Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace in the region amid a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Here is House Speaker Mike Johnson from Louisiana.
We want to speak very clearly and concisely to say that this is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong.
The search continues here in Nashville for missing college student Riley Strain after his disappearance while on a fraternity trip here in Music City about a week ago. Strain, 22 years of age, a University of Missouri student, went missing after being asked to be leaving from Luke Bryan's Broadway bar back on March the 8th. He was officially reported the very next day. On Thursday, today, Metro Police, the urban search and rescue team, has been assembled to search along the brush line of the Cumberland River for the young man whose phone last pinged near the river. The search team on land has also used climbing gear to rappel down the river in hopes of finding Strain. Metro Police, they have scheduled a news briefing that should be getting underway any moment. We'll keep you posted. That is the latest news. Weather's on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Friends, Matt Murphy for the world-famous Glock store, and it truly is world-famous. You know, Lenny McGill came from out in California. I haven't told the story in a while, but he decided that California maybe wasn't the most business-friendly location for him to have the world-famous Glock store. My brother went to the Glock store before it moved out of California into Nashville, Tennessee. He said it was a great place there, too. But Lenny did his research. He decided that he needed to get to a friendlier business state and a state friendlier to the Second Amendment, and he found it. He certainly found it in Nashville, Tennessee. And now they have their incredible facility up and running, and it's been there for a number of years on Airlane Drive just off of Elm Hill Pike. I want you to go in and see the beautiful retail space, but if your first introduction is the website, that's a pretty good one as well. You go over to Glockstore.com, where people buy from all over the world. They ship all over the world. They ship guns all over the United States of America, and you can find the incredible deals that they have at Glock Store, and then you can go see them in person right here in Nashville. What others have to buy from the internet, we can buy right there in person at the retail space just off of Elm Hill Pike on Airlane Drive. Not only the retail space, but also the incredible shooting rooms at shoot270.com. That's shoot270.com. Find out how you can hook up with a personal trainer and get yourself in a room situation, not a lane situation, which is a much better realistic training scenario. So whether it's shoot270.com or glockstore.com, tell them that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only, the world famous McGill's Glock Store. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Those headphones have become somewhat of an intelligence test, you know, and so I'm going to let you figure it out. Hold on, let me see. Let me show you. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and this is hour number 3. And I just put Gino Bulso through his paces. Representative Bulso is here in studio with us, and we have these very complex headphones that he was putting on as we were coming back on air. Hello.
Good afternoon, Matt. Thank you for the Rubik's Cube introduction to the show today.
That's people on Super Talk TV. It can get a little daunting here at times. That's how we separate the real radio host from the fakers. So.
It works.
Good to have you in.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, a lot going on in the General Assembly, obviously, and a lot to discuss. And let me tell you, you've been busy.
Yes, we've had a lot of success both this year and last year in getting some really good bills through the House, through the Senate, and signed by the governor. And there's more coming up next week as well.
Obviously, we want to talk with you where you are with regard to the what has been referred to as school choice, school vouchers, scholarship program. We'll get to that in a moment.
Sure.
I want to ask you about a couple of pieces of legislation you've got moving through. But the latest was a bill that it was called Meet Baby Olivia. At least that's how it was described, I think, by you.
Yes.
And by others. Talk to us about this piece of legislation and the reaction to it as introduced.
Sure. I learned in January about this spectacular computer-generated video called Meet Baby Olivia that was produced by an organization called Live Action. And it actually shows the development of an unborn child from a conception all the way through birth. It is beautifully illustrated and has a completely accurate voiceover. 16 separate facts regarding fetal development are included in the video. And I knew from my work in the General Assembly that we have this thing called a family life curriculum in Title 49. A family life curriculum requires that certain items be taught and that certain other items not be taught. And it occurred to me that because this video was such a remarkable demonstration of a look inside the uterus as the baby is formed and grows, that it ought to become part of our family life curriculum for public schools when it's age appropriate to do so across the entire state. And so I filed a bill to do that, and it's now going to be on the House floor on Monday afternoon.
What was, let's start with your own party.
Sure.
What was the reaction by your fellow Republicans?
It was phenomenally good because I didn't really have to do much to persuade other members about the value of this video, because the way I introduced it to the committee members was simply to send them a link to babyolivia.com, and they watched the 3-minute, 21-second video and uniformly responded, wow, that is spectacular. That's something we need to have in our schools as part of the family life curriculum, because it is 100% scientifically accurate and really demonstrates that life begins at conception and shows the development of that life all the way through the pregnancy.
I might guess about this next question, but I will hesitate to do so and simply ask it. Your friends across the aisle, the Democrats, how did they react?
Shockingly, they were opposed to it. And the principal line of attack was that it was not medically accurate, that somehow because the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists were opposed to it, that it shouldn't be shown in any of our schools. But in fact, the entire video was sourced from scientific data that was available from the Endowment for Human Development, a national 501c3 organization that's dedicated to providing neutral scientific data regarding all types of things having to do with human growth, human sexuality. But that was the principal thrust, that somehow this was not accurate and therefore shouldn't be shown.
Is there a danger? Because I think there's some language I watched, and the presenter said, and I wrote this down, this is the moment. It's describing when the sperm unites with the egg or the ovum, and it says, this is the moment that life begins. A new human being has come into existence. At fertilization, her gender, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, and countless other traits are already determined. It occurs to me that there's some uniformity amongst the faithful as to when we believe life begins. But there's not total uniformity, and there's nothing within our government that suggests that we have to be faithful at all or that we have to believe these certain things. Is there, I would ask, as a way to balance the conversation, is there a danger in that type of language certifying certain religious beliefs over maybe other beliefs regarding life and when it begins?
I would say, Matt, no, there's not a danger of that nature, because this is not a matter of faith. I mean, obviously, religious faith is not something that can be taught in our public schools, because that would be considered a violation of what's called the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. So this doesn't involve faith. This involves reason. It involves scientific fact. And it is a fact that has been scientifically demonstrated that at the time of fertilization or conception, obviously the two mean the same thing, you have all 46 chromosomes present. You have the entire genetic makeup of the child, and from there it's just a point of growth and development. And although people might quibble about the words, the fact of the matter is that life, that is the growth of the embryo, begins at conception. And that's when life begins. That's what the video states. And ask yourself this: if life does not begin at conception, when then does it begin? And I don't think you can answer that question intelligently except to conclude that, yeah, life begins at conception. We have the entire genetic makeup, and from there, it's just a matter of growth and development.
Right. No one is obviously, and I love the way that our friends on the left try to confuse the matter. No one is suggesting that that life can exist unto itself at that time. There still needs to be obviously growth within the mother, but there's no question that is the beginning of what is a life.
Sure.
that will flourish if allowed to. So you want to present, for me, it's a matter of balancing the scales. And I think for far too long, sadly, in public education, we've seen an imbalance in terms of what we're willing to discuss in those circles, what is within boundaries and what is exterior to the boundaries. We're told that it's perfectly acceptable for our school teachers to, and, I know we might take some exception with this, but it's acceptable to talk about contraception. It's acceptable to talk about preventing pregnancies in a variety of ways. It's perfectly acceptable to talk about premarital sex and the results of premarital sex within the confines of a sexual education. But it's not permissible to talk about what might result from said same activity, and it's not permissible to help those young people understand the consequences, ultimately creating another life, and the consequences of eliminating that life through, God forbid, an abortion.
I think you're right. This does provide that type of balance, because there are in our current family life curricula the very things that you mentioned, and obviously different local school districts will handle things differently. But when you look at the Baby Olivia video, what it certainly does is it brings to life in a way that has never been done before the consequences of any type of sexual conduct. And so, we're not writing on a blank slate. We already have a statute that requires certain elements to be in a family life curriculum. And whether we start with sex education where we are right now or not, putting that aside, this video does provide some additional factual information that I think all students would benefit from knowing about.
Representative Gino Bulso is with us in studio this afternoon talking about this and other matters going on in the General Assembly. Related to this was a piece that came to us from our sister state to the south regarding in vitro fertilization. And I don't know the answer to this question. I'm shooting in the dark, and you might not either. But considering your focus on this issue, I'm wondering if you know where we are as a state with regard to in vitro fertilization. Obviously, for those who don't know, Alabama, they passed a law preventing abortions very similar to the one that the state of Tennessee has. There was a civil matter that involved the accidental destruction of fertilized eggs at a fertilization clinic that led to a civil lawsuit that ultimately led to the Alabama Supreme Court deciding that based on statutes from the 1800s defining what a child was versus the inability to destroy what would be a human life through the abortion statute, that led to their deciding that the fertilized eggs were in fact had all the rights of a child, which scared the heck out of IVF clinics. And eventually they repaired it and they carved out some specific language with regard to in vitro fertilization clinics, because nobody wants to suggest that the state should have that level of involvement in helping parents become, or helping a mother and a father become parents. Anyway, do you know where the state of Tennessee is on that? And do we need any reparative language in our statutes regarding in vitro fertilization?
The short answer is, Matt, I do not. It's not something that I've studied, something that I intend to. But as to whether we need some revision to our current laws, it's not something that I could answer today, but maybe at a future time we can have a more in-depth discussion about that.
It feels like a one-off. I mean, the circumstances came together, so it doesn't feel like you could predict that would happen in any other state, but perhaps something worthy of looking into down the road, just to make sure, because I think parents who perhaps have not been able to have children, who are looking for those types of options, would be comforted with the idea that they would be protected in some way.
Understandably. And I think what's important to understand today is that the Baby Olivia video has nothing to do with IVF.
No. Yeah. And obviously I'm not trying to conflate those two issues, but I encourage people, can they go to just babyolivia.com?
Yes.
And look at the video, and it is a fascinating study. I remember it reminded me of, and it brought me to tears, this event. It was in Washington, D.C., and it was a display, and I think eventually it toured. It was fairly controversial because some of the cadavers that were used in this display, it was determined that perhaps it was not consensual one way or the other. It was about the human body, and it was examining the human body in its adult forms, and a piece of the display was you walk into a room, the room is completely empty, and along the walls, it was a circular wall. I think there were 14 or 16 jars, and there were babies in stages of development, actual babies from the point in life where you could barely see it visibly with the eye, the child, to 9 months of development. And you walk through that and you see the development of the child, and you see how quickly arms and legs and eyes and brain and lungs and all of these things have developed within the baby. I mean, it really helps you understand that we're not talking about fetus. We're not talking about tissue. We're talking about life.
Absolutely.
And I think the Baby Olivia video reminded me greatly of that.
It demonstrates that.
You expect it to pass?
I do, very much so. It's going to be, as I mentioned, on the floor of the House on Monday afternoon, and in the Senate Education Committee next week on the 20th, I believe.
Quickly on the what updates do you have for us on the flag legislation, tilting over to that legislation, which received its what you would have expected, the fair share of left-wing controversy amongst us that believe that the symbols of our nation's sovereignty and our state sovereignty should be well represented, carve out some exceptions for history and other learning. Outside of that, these flags shouldn't be in the classroom to begin with. Thank you for speaking for so many Tennesseans who share your belief that we need to focus on educating our children and those ancillary events that might involve that education. Let's have that, but everything else needs to stay out. Where are we on this?
We're close. That bill has passed the House. It actually has also passed the Senate Education Committee and is just waiting to be put on the calendar for the floor of the Senate. So sometime in the next week or so, I would expect that the Senate will be voting as a body on that flag bill. Is the bill over there, is it the same bill as the one that was in the House, or is there anything that needs to be resolved in terms of, I mean, I know sometimes the bills are different. Is this the same legislation? Identical.
Well, very good. And the governor has indicated that he would sign it? Or do you know?
I've not spoken with him, but just from what I've seen from Governor Lee, I think he is someone who understands that parents ought to be in control of what values are instilled in their children, and he'll likely, I think, very likely sign it.
And I want to give you an opportunity. I think you and I are very much on the same page. I think the listening audience is on the same page. But for those who are perhaps listening that may be gay, or they have, a 17, 18-year-old child that says they are gay, parents who are more involved in that side of the issue, this has been characterized as somehow anti-gay or and I don't look at it that way at all. What would you say to those folks who have concerns? What have you said to those folks who have concerns that you are, quote unquote, going against certain communities in the state of Tennessee?
Well, I tell them that that's just not true. In fact, I've heard from a number of gay individuals who are very much in support of the bill because whether one is straight or homosexual doesn't affect whether a person should love or be loved. Of course they should. I think we all know in our lives folks who are both straight and gay, and we love all of them. This has nothing to do with any particular type of lifestyle. It has to do with the approach that some in education take of trying to indoctrinate a certain set of values into school children through the use of a pride flag, in particular, among others. And we've had a lot of work in the General Assembly over the past year regarding these transgender issues. And you have people, I think, of good faith on both sides. But the fact of the matter is, I think most parents have a view of this transgenderism that is different from that is represented by that pride flag. And I think a lot of parents have a view of the Obergefell decision from 2015, which is very different from that represented by the pride flag. And all our bill really says is that the school should be a place where kids are educated, not indoctrinated. Allow parents to decide when and what values to instill in their own child. That has nothing to do with being anti-gay or anti-anyone. It simply has to do with recognizing that parents have the duty, the obligation, and the responsibility to raise their kids the way they think they should.
Gino Bulso is with us. We've got him for a couple of additional moments. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, I'll ask him his position on the scholarship bill and where we are in that process. We'll do that next on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Oftentimes when we talk healthcare, we talk about open enrollment. And sadly, it's convinced people that outside of the month of like October or November, that there's nothing that you can do about your health insurance. Well, Pat Davis and YourHealthPlanMan.com is here to dispel that myth, because if you qualify, and understand that it takes a certain parameter by which you can do this, but Pat will be there to work with you. He and his team can help you get better coverage today, and you don't have to wait until, quote-unquote, open enrollment. Most people that buy their own health insurance probably don't have the right coverage because, sadly, you don't have a concierge like Pat Davis and the Your Health Plan Man team. He can shop any and all companies, which is good for you, right? Because he can select that which is best for you, and he's not trying to sell you anything individually. Secondarily, he can overcome the Obamacare problem. And the way I say that is the way that it is, right? That many people believe that if you have to go an economy route with your health insurance, that you're pushed toward Obamacare. Not so. They have plans that are 30 to 60% less in cost than Obamacare, and they don't have all of the strings attached that Obamacare often comes with, and they don't mandate that you have coverage for things that you don't need. I mean, a great example is maternity coverage. I mean, some people of a certain age don't need it, and if you don't need it, you ought not to have to pay for it. YourHealthPlanMan.com is the website. That's YourHealthPlanMan.com, or call 855-4PLAN-MAN. Pat Davis is ready, willing, and able to help you. 855-475-2662 for YourHealthPlanMan.com.
An Israeli official accusing the U.S. of slow walking supplies to its ally in its Gaza war. We'll have the American response. And after this afternoon's police briefing on the missing Missouri college student in Nashville, we'll have the latest. Those stories at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There's a press conference that was going on. I don't know if it continues to go on, and we continue to monitor that from the control area.
Yeah, I paid attention to it, and it was just a lot of rehash. I mean, I don't mean that negatively. They were just going over what they already knew.
So there's no new info coming out today about it.
They were just kind of giving an update on what they had done and that it's still not a criminal investigation. It's just a missing persons investigation.
Really, the third case, one of them was resolved successfully. The young little 7-year-old girl that was missing for a while, her non-custodial mother had taken her. She got reunited with the father, and that's great news. And they're back to California, I believe. Obviously, Sebastian up in Hendersonville, what a tragedy that has. I say that, and I don't want to get in front of myself. You pray and you hope that that comes to a good conclusion, a positive conclusion. We don't know yet. And then on the heels of that, this young man, 22 years old, downtown Nashville. So a lot of concern about a lot of those things. Representative Gino Bulso is in studio with us to talk about matters of the General Assembly. Obviously, the biggest. I mean, is it fair to characterize this as the biggest piece of legislation that you guys have? I mean, outside of budgets and the normal duties that you have on any given year. I mean, this is a pretty big piece, this scholarship fund.
Without question, it is.
Where are you on it?
I'm a proponent of school choice, and in particular, a proponent of Governor Lee's proposal. It's interesting that I'd say most of the Democrats in both the House and the Senate will be opposed to it. But even among my conservative constituents, there's a bit of a split between those who like what Governor DeSantis has done in Florida, what Governor Reynolds has done in Iowa, and Governor Huckabee Sanders has done in Arkansas. But there are others who are worried that once you have any type of public funds going into private education, that over time that's going to erode the independence that private schools have. And that concern has caused many to oppose this proposal. But I think on balance, it's where education needs to be headed. Because when you think about it, Matt, when you're educating a child, you really have academic formation, you've got moral formation, and you've got spiritual formation. And ideally, all three of those things go on at the same time because, whether the parent is doing the one forming a child or not, a child is being formed in all three of those areas. And currently, obviously in the public schools, you cannot get involved in any type of spiritual formation. That's something that, once again, has been found to be a violation of the Establishment Clause. And what Governor Lee's proposal does is it allows parents who want to select a school that has academic formation, moral formation, and spiritual formation to do it in a way that gives them some value for the taxes that they've paid into the system over so much time. So I think it's something that is going to pass, and I'm happy to be in support of it.
It feels like some of our conservative friends who are leaning against are concerned about what might be, not what is in the legislation. Is that a fair characterization?
It is. And one of the things that I draw on is, what has happened so far. And we've had some experience with the ESA, the Education Savings Account program that is already in place, the ESA program. And 95% of the parents who have chosen to take advantage of that program in Shelby County, Davidson County, and Hamilton County are in favor of it. They're given rave reviews to the program. And I think once the Education Freedom Scholarship program is rolled out and parents actually see how it does allow them to choose a school that aligns not just with their academic needs for their children, but for their spiritual and emotional needs, it'll become wildly popular across the state.
You're a great conservative voice in Williamson County and throughout the state of Tennessee, and I appreciate you spending some time with us. Let's do this again very soon.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you.
There's Representative Gino Bulso joining us for a good 30 minutes. It's 2:32. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back after this.
Good afternoon. It is 2:32, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got 78 degrees, a bit of sun, and some wind in Music City. We'll have your complete forecast in mere moments. A senior Israeli official today telling ABC News that quietly and without any formal notice, the U.S. is now slow-walking supplies of ammunition to Israel. In addition, the official says the European market doesn't want to sell Israel arms. Here's White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby today when asked about that reporting.
I'm not going to get into the timeline for every individual system that's being provided. We continue to support Israel with their self-defense needs. That's not going to change, and we have been very, very direct about that.
The search continues for missing college student Riley Strain after his disappearance while on a fraternity trip in Nashville about a week ago. Strain, 22 years of age, is a Missouri University student. He went missing after being asked to leave Luke Bryan's Broadway bar back on March 8th. He was officially reported missing the next day. Metro Nashville Police just conducted a briefing on the young man's disappearance. Nashville Police Sergeant Robert Nielsen emphasized that currently no foul play is suspected.
This is strictly a missing person investigation at this point. Obviously, those things can always change. We just don't know. But right now, all of our resources are dedicated towards finding him. We're not conducting a criminal investigation of any type.
Nielsen also stated that Mr. Strain's phone last pinged from a cell tower near Top Golf across the Cumberland River. However, he did point out that that ping has a 2-mile radius and thus, unfortunately, does not give a more specific location. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hello, friends. Matt Murphy here for Dr. Stephen Paas and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. I did not know that I had sleep apnea. I did a sleep study, and I discovered that I had sleep apnea. And I immediately called Dr. Paas, and I said, Doc, what do we do about this? Because I do not believe for a moment that I can wear a CPAP machine. And now that I know that I have this issue, what can I do? Well, he developed an appliance for me. The way that I describe it to most people, it's incredible. It's like if you ever played football, you know, your mouth guard that you put in while you're playing football, it's even smaller than that, as a matter of fact. I mean, you don't notice it after a night or two. I have not noticed that it is in my mouth, but what it does do, I have noticed, and that is it helps keep my airways open. It helps me breathe better. It helps me snore less. I wasn't a big snorer, according to my sleep study, but I do have sleep apnea, according to that same study. And, you know, 25% of adults who have sleep apnea are unaware of it. So if you just wake up feeling tired or groggy, if you don't feel like you got a good night's sleep, why not talk to Dr. Paas and see how he can help potentially with an appliance from the Dr. Paas Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. I am a personal testimony as to how well it works. You need to go by and see them in Brentwood or Murfreesboro. And, by the way, their office is in network with all major insurance companies like BCBS, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, and TRICARE for the military. So your insurance covers this procedure. drpaas.com. That's drposs.com. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN covering the latest this afternoon, 2:40. We'll get with Brian Wilson coming up in about 10 or so minutes. Hold on, I have to sneeze. Stand by. Hey, Belkay's got something to say to you, very important.
He is Okay, he just sneezed into his left hand, and now he's back.
Hey, how's it going? Good job, buddy. Thank you. I just didn't want to sneeze on everybody. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, you saw how that went. And by the way, nothing on my hand. So just in case anybody's wondering, it was a clean one. It was a clean sneeze. You ever do that? We talk about these sorts of things that everyone else refuses to talk about. We are willing to go there on the Matt Murphy Show.
Everybody talks about this. They just don't admit they talk about
Where
it.
you have a sneeze and you go into the you're not even supposed to. I did the hand. You're not supposed to do the hand anymore. You're supposed to do the thing, right?
I'm sorry. You're trying to impose a rule. You're trying to impose a rule on me here.
That's what I'm told.
Well,
that's what I learned during the COVID, and everything else they said during COVID was true.
I'm not doing. In fact, when I go to sneeze, I try to find a door handle.
Right, or a human face.
Yes, that too.
It's so weird. As I get older, there are certain areas of my life that I'm becoming more Howard Hughes, and certain areas of my life that I'm becoming more homeless bum. Right? Like, I've never believed in that antibacterial gel garbage. What?
There's somebody out there right now going, he pees in milk bottles and lines his wall.
I do. Have you been to my house? You
Yes,
have. You've
I
seen them. No, I mean, you get more OCD about certain things, and I just, as an example, if I walk into the break room, you often will walk into the break room at the radio station and you see food. And more often than not, the food is easily identifiable as to where it came from. You know, it's in containers with markings on it about what business establishment it came from. And so occasionally if I see that, I might eat some of that food. But if I don't know where that food came from, or it looks like it came from someone's home, I'm not touching that food. And it has nothing, no offense to you or anyone who brought it. Nope, sorry, not going to do it. When it comes to other aspects of, I have become more.
Well, that's not entirely true. I have seen you eat cake that people have brought from their homes that they made for like somebody's birthday.
Yeah, but I knew who made it. Right. That's the point. Okay. If I don't know, if it looks like it's a homemade deal and I don't know who made it, if I know who made it, then I can evaluate whether or not I'm going to eat it. And if you make something and bring it from your home and I don't eat it, it probably means I don't trust your kitchen. Anyway, And look, I mean, anybody watching me on Super Talk TV, there aren't many kitchens that I don't trust because I'm a fat boy. I get it. But about some things, I'm risk averse about some things when it comes to germs, and about other things, I'm like, let's not be stupid. Our bodies need to protect ourselves through our own natural immunity. And if you bathe yourself in antibacterial soap or if you bathe yourself in antibacterial gel, you're not giving your body.
Yeah, but don't you forget, a vaccine's better than natural immunity.
And Wendy has written in. Have you seen what Wendy wrote on the Members Nutrition Super Text line? She's written something in. Yeah, is that a proper terminology? Something that Wendy has wrote? I don't think that's right.
Righted.
She righted something.
I don't know that that's necessarily.
I don't know that that's true. I don't believe that. I think my sneeze is much more powerful than that, Wendy. Thank you very much. And yes, 3629, I recognize that this is an oxymoron because I bring cookies for other people, but I didn't make those cookies. My wife did. And she has the finest and cleanest kitchen on planet Earth. And I know that it's a lie that I'm telling myself because 4297 says, come on, Matt, everything you eat, you don't know where it comes from, even nice restaurants. No, you're right. But here is where I agree with a certain level of socialism. We all allow certain levels of socialism in our lives, or at least where government intervenes and acts as an intermediary, and I think that's perfectly appropriate. Restaurant inspection is one of those. This is where I call myself a libertarian with a small L, because I feel like big L libertarians would tell you that we need to eliminate health inspections of restaurants. I don't know that that's an official libertarian policy, but I've talked to a lot of libertarians that say that that's government overreach. Well, if your business doesn't keep itself clean, it's going to make people sick. And when it starts making people sick, your business will shut down. And that's the free market, Murphy, they say. To which I say, you know what? I think it's an undue burden on any business that would have me walking into them and demanding that I walk through the kitchen before I eat there, which is what I would do absent health inspections. So at least some of these businesses have to deal with health inspections. And 2285 says it's the word I was looking for was not wrote. It was written. Thank you. Hunter Biden has announced that he will refuse a public opportunity to testify before the halls of the United States Congress. Yesterday, he refused to accept House Oversight Committee James Comer's offer to publicly testify before Congress March 20th. Hunter previously said that he would only testify in public and refused to appear for any closed-door testimony. That was back in December. As a matter of fact, Hunter said outside the U.S. Capitol last December that that now infamous conversation that he had, what was that called? Brian Wilson will know. He'll repair this when he comes on with us in about 8 minutes or so, because he helped create the little speakers area, the little speaker swamp area out there outside of the Senate. Here I am, Mr. Chairman, Hunter Biden said, taking up your offer when you said we can bring these people in for depositions or committee hearings whenever they choose. Well, I've chosen. I'm here to testify in a public hearing today to answer any of your committee's legitimate questions, he said outside the U.S. Capitol in December. He later appeared for a closed-door interview before the House impeachment inquiry. Apparently, it didn't go very well because in a letter to Comer yesterday, Abby Lowell, Hunter's lawyer, said the invitation is, quote, an attempt to resuscitate your conference's moribund inquiry in a made-for-right-wing media circus act. I must convey my surprise by your hasty request, he continued, that after a 6+ hour deposition on February 28th, 2024, I thought you would recognize your baseless impeachment proceeding was dead. And on and on and on it went from Lowell and by extension from Hunter Biden. The bottom line is this. The matter did not go well for Hunter, we are told, in the closed-door deposition, in the closed-door testimony. There were a number of issues that involved potential perjury on the part of Hunter Biden, or at very least, there were matters that looked very bad for Hunter, James, and by extension, Joe, a.k.a. the big guy. Now Hunter recognizes that he's been called, his bluff has been called, to use the poker parlance or the card-playing parlance. He did not believe that they would offer him the opportunity to stand before the American people on that day, and they didn't. But the House impeachment inquiry was patient enough to wait on him to respond to the deposition demand, and he did. And now that he has done so, he truly has no interest in going before the American people because they have much things to hide, do the Biden family. Much things to hide. In the meantime, I'll tell you who doesn't have anything to hide, and that's Brian Wilson. He's with The Drive, and he'll be with us in a moment to preview what's coming up this afternoon from 3 until 7. That's happening next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Before we get to Brian Wilson in the drive, 20 seconds of what we were trying to find throughout the show. I was told earlier this morning that a representative in the General Assembly essentially admitted to violating federal law by what some are saying aiding and abetting illegal aliens to cross the southern border. I want you to listen to this from this morning's testimony real quick in the House, the General Assembly, the Tennessee House of Representatives, and tell me if Representative Justin Jones is not admitting that he aided an illegal alien in crossing the southern border.
My colleagues here, let's go to the border together and let's go meet some of these folks. Let's meet people like Javier, who walked through the Darien Gap coming from Venezuela, who I walked with across the border, and who was a local government official who was calling out corruption in his government and is now fleeing for his lives.
So he's saying that he walked with him across the border. So there's a sitting representative, but he's a Democrat. Nobody will bother with it. I just wanted to share that with you because we had promised that we'd try to track it down. Brian Wilson joins us from the drive to preview what's going on this afternoon. Hello, Mr. Wilson. How are you?
You were talking about that little patio that I set up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what you called it.
Well, it's long been called the swamp site, and that's where I think the word swamp came from. You know, they say that D.C. was a swamp at one point, and then they filled it in with a bunch of dirt. But there was a place right outside the Senate where we used to set up our cameras. We had all our electronic connections there. And it's a place where you do stand-ups, and it's a place where you interview senators. And it was just, I mean, when I was there, it was a mud hole. I became chairman of the radio. I mean, it was ugly. I mean, it was really ugly. You couldn't get in there, but it was where your connections were. So all the grass got worn down, and it just turned into a big mud hole every time it rained.
Okay.
Senators hated it. We hated it. So I was chairman of the Radio TV Correspondents Association, and I went to the Capitol Architect and asked for a patio. And they jokingly was referred to for a short while as the Brian Wilson Memorial Patio. And the Washington Post even wrote a story about it, and I said that the only thing that I thought was now lacking was a nice hibachi, but we could never get that approved.
maybe a fire pit or something.
It's there today. It's solid brick, and I'm responsible for it.
All right, what's coming up on the drive this afternoon, my friend?
Big deal at 5:05. It's been a hot minute since we've talked to the governor of the state of Tennessee. Governor Bill Lee will join us, and by the way, send me that clip of the Justin fella coming across the border. I'll have the governor react to that. I want to know what he thinks about it.
I will most certainly get it to you. Well, I'm excited. Governor Bill Lee back on Super Talk 99.7 WTN in the drive. That's exciting stuff, and that's coming up at 5:05.
5:05.
5:05 this afternoon, and much between now and then, and you need to listen to every single moment of it. First, however, Jay Harper has the news, and upcoming, The Drive with Brian Wilson. We'll be back tomorrow at high noon. Until then, folks, hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.